So I think this topic, out of all the subjects that I usually talk about, is one that I have had the most personal experience around, mainly because I have been injured a lot. I even wrote down some of the injuries that I have, and I have no doubt that I've actually missed them. I know that I have torn my hamstrings, both left and the right, roughly around 6 to 8 times. I know that I've done my quads around about 4 or 5 times. I've had side strains. I had patellar tendinopathy in both knees. I had to have surgeries on both of those knees. Actually, my biggest injury, if you've heard my story before, was when I was 16, where I had my first ever stress fracture. I then had reoccurring and a worse one when I was 26, which ended my career. But my initial stress fractures, that kept me out of the game for 2 years. I've had broken fingers along the way. I've had shoulder impingements. I've had an endless amount of cortisone injections. I had one summer where I had, I think, upwards of 60 spinal injections into certain areas, unknown amount of facet joint injections, especially in the spine, and many different types of therapies along the way that go there. So when it comes to injuries, I have been there. I've been sidelined. And if you are suffering from an injury right now, I have been in your boat. So I empathize. I understand what it feels like. I don't know the injuries that you're going through. One thing that this podcast will not be is about how you physically deal with those injuries, because each injury itself requires its own rehabilitation. It requires its own rest. And if you are unsure what to do in that realm, then do make sure that you are reaching out to a physiotherapist. You're seeing a specialist that can help you physically overcome your injury. But what I want to talk about in this episode is how you mentally overcome it, how you deal with the mental challenges that you're presented with in the first place, and how you then perhaps make the most of your situation once you have perhaps accepted your injury, and then how you move past it, and then hopefully how you come out the other side bigger and better than before. So you're probably, if you are injured and you're listening to this and you're currently injured, or you know someone that is injured, they're going to be feeling, or you are going to be feeling, a sense of unhappiness, sadness, maybe frustration, maybe anger. And that is quite simply down to the fact that you are not able to do the thing that you want to be doing. Now, whether that's going into a performance, a really big performance that you want to have, or whether it is an opportunity that you had on the horizon, or maybe it could just even be a preseason. It could be anything, but ultimately it is going to be the fact that you're not doing the thing that you love. And that is going to really hurt that person. And the reason being is ultimately there's something that's been taken from you and it's out of your control. Now, again, if you've listened to the podcast, you will hear me talk about so often that frustration, anxiety, anger can all come from us trying to control something that we can't control, but we want to control it. And when we try to do that over and over again, and especially when it's something that really means a lot to us, that really hits us hard. So that's where the initial upset, the initial sadness and frustration will be coming from. It's this moment of I'm unable to control something in my life. And the antidote to this, the essential only way in which we can get past this, is by accepting. The first step that we must embrace in an injury, in a moment when we have been injured, is accepting that we are injured. We have got to rest. We have got to stop. We cannot continue. We cannot go on the way we are. We need to stop. We need to rest. And accepting that you are injured, the sooner you can do that, the faster you can move on to action, which is what we're going to talk about next. So essentially, it's the equation that I always run through when it comes to people that feel this frustration, this anxiety in their lives, is ask yourself, can I control it? If the answer is yes, great, go take action. But if the answer is you can't control it, which usually in an injury we're stuck with, I cannot control this situation, therefore I need to accept it. And if we don't accept it, we suffer, we beat ourselves up over and over and over again. So finding that acceptance is step number one to being able to overcome your injuries, to get onto the next phase, which is taking action and doing something about it and making the most out of the situation that you're in, making the most out of the time that you're going to be sidelined. So the first step, or I'd say the first thing I would be taking care of to make sure that you do come back and you make the most of your time being injured, is do everything right. Whether that is recover the best you possibly can. Whether that is doing a rehabilitation program, follow that to the letter. you don't want to come out the other side of an injury, whether it's taking you 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, months maybe, and thinking, I wish I could have done more. When I've torn my muscles, especially when I've torn like my hamstrings and my quads and I've had these tears, I have actually ended up coming back sooner than was prescribed. That's one, because I was pretty good at my training. And any athlete that I've seen that is really good at their training, it's the benefit of doing regular training is the fact that your body teaches itself to repair better and better. But more often than not, when I got injured, I did everything right. I did straight away. I would whatever it was needed, whether it was ice, whether it was movement. There's different theories that are going on. There's different injuries require different things. But whatever it was, I got the advice and I got told what to do. And then I got onto it and I did it. I prioritized that more than anything and got straight away knowing that I was ticking that box. And that put me in a much better place, knowing that, okay, I can't control this situation that I'm in, but I'm doing everything I possibly can to make it a better one. And when you can do that, that brings some form of control back into your life. You're able to control that looking after your body. And by doing that, you'll start to feel a little bit easier. And that's, again, through my own experience of many different injuries, but also seeing other athletes, because ultimately, aim of the game is to try and get yourself back to full fitness as soon as you possibly can. It's not about rushing it, but it's about doing it right so that when you come back, you don't risk doing it again. I know for a hamstring injury, for example, I think it's about 6 weeks after you're kind of back from full fitness or after it was done, then that's where you're most susceptible to doing it again. So it's not necessarily about getting back super quick and as fast as you possibly can, but getting back with quality, getting back with the knowledge that you've done everything right and your body is in the best possible place to have a crack and push the letter again and go again. So the other thing you can do with being in an injury, in a space for injury, is that you can use the time to reflect on what you possibly could have done better or what you can do better moving forward. So perhaps if you got injured, there was something you were neglecting. I'm going to use my hamstring example as another one. So I had neglected flexibility. My hamstrings were super tight. They were strong, but they were super tight. And I'd neglected flexibility. So by the time I came out of the first lot of injuries with them, I started a flexibility training program. I took up yoga, for example, and they really had a benefit. It really helped. I've told this story before, but when I went into starting on yoga, I went from getting an injury every 3 months, I think. And then by the end of it, of taking up yoga, I hadn't had one in about 18 months. And it was because I added in this element that I knew I needed to add in. I didn't change my training. I was training just as much, but I added the recovery, I added the flexibility side, and that was the thing I needed to do right. So it was that part of my game that I needed to improve. That was part of my physicality and my physical training that I had improved on with the time to reflect, because I just ultimately didn't want to sit in that space again. I didn't want to be sitting, not playing and not being able to do anything. So use the time to reflect on what you possibly could do better. And it takes some honest thinking here. It takes being honest with yourself. What could I do better? Go ask questions of someone. If you're not sure of how you're going to get better, what you need to be doing better, go ask those honest questions of someone, that a coach, a family member, a friend, whoever may see you train or know you well enough. Go and ask them, how can I get better? What do you think I need to be doing in order to get myself into a better place? Now, there are some injuries out there that perhaps are not our fault and just complete accidents. So this may not be something, but I'm sure there is always a lesson. There is always this lesson we can take out, these dark moments that we have. And it's in those moments that we can come out the other side better once we've decided to take up these lessons. So see if there is any lessons that you can learn, something that you've perhaps not been paying attention to, you've perhaps done before and maybe slid off and started to neglect. Maybe you got a little bit complacent in what you were doing. And by doing that, this injury occurred. So it's about refreshing, reviewing, and just reflecting and being able to go again, or set something up that's brand new in the first place and add it in. The next bit I would talk about is something I definitely did, and that is about learning something new, developing a new skill. When I was injured, it left me away from, in my sport, cricket. I couldn't bowl when I was a bowler. And for me, there were other skills that I could develop. So we have batting in cricket, we have catching and fielding and all sorts of things like that. So during the time that I couldn't bowl and I couldn't do the skill that I wanted to do within reason, and also quick note is that you should be getting the all clear from your physical trainers, your physios that you can go and do these things, is being able to develop new skills. Now, these skills could be in the game that you have. This could be in your game, in your remit that you currently have. If you cannot do that, look at other skills outside of your sport. Develop life skills. Maybe you've got a course that you wanted to start. Maybe you wanted to learn the guitar, Spanish, whatever it might be. You can utilize your time by developing a new skill. When you're doing that, you're feeling this sense of you're achieving something, you're moving yourself in the right place and moving in the right direction. And even by adding those in, you might be in a better place for your sport when you come out of the other side of the injury. I would also use it as a time to perhaps develop other mental skills. If I knew some of the stuff that I know now around mental skills, and especially mindset and mental skills, I would have been developing those skills for when I return. So if it was learning methods of how to deal with anxiety, if it was finding ways to bring out more confidence, maybe it's even tactical. So having better game plans and working on when I return, what game plans do I want to execute? What training do I want to do when I return? And that could start to motivate you, get you excited about the moment when it comes, so that when you do return and you're fit again, you're not just hit by it like a ton of bricks. You're completely ready. You've practiced. You've got some things that you've been working on, and all you want to do is just go and execute them and go and try them and get out there and enjoy yourself. So there could be things that you want to develop that are like mental skills. It could be these different tactical or technical skills in other areas and domains of your sport. Whatever it is, see if there's something that you can develop, maybe within your sport or maybe outside of your sport in your life. And by developing new skills, you're going to feel like a completely different person. And no doubt you'll feel proud of yourself. And if anything, all of these different things is just going to help you pass the time. It's actually just going to help you pass the time and allow you to get to the other end a little bit better and quicker, maybe just by being busy, not dwelling on it and not dwelling in your own time. One other thing I would add here is that I did a lot of community stuff. So I did some stuff with my cricket club, so that I was either coaching or I was helping out. I did some groundsman work, but it was stuff-based, sort of community-based stuff that I started doing because it, one, passed the time. It also allowed me to be around the sport. I got to listen to some of the conversations that were still going on. Coaches didn't think I'd just run off into the distance, and they by literally having me around and seeing me, I was still recognizable, so people could recognize me. And I hadn't gone off the radar. You don't fall off the radar. So do get yourself around your team, your coaches, the environment, and try and help out in whatever way it can be. Even if it is the team that you're playing for, see if there's a way in which you can help others. That just shows, whether it's the coaches, the other teammates, that you still care and you want to be around. You haven't just gone off anywhere, and you really care about coming back. And that can just help your perception and give you a better perspective as well when you do return. So see if there's any way in which you can offer your services, your help to others, to help not only others, but you can help yourself in the act of doing that. So that will help pass the time as well. I found that really effective because you just don't go out of earshot. People remember you, and you're constantly reminding them that I'm here. I know I'm injured, but I still want this and I want to be around and I'm willing to help. When my time comes, I'm ready to go. So when you have been injured and you potentially now are coming back from injury and you're looking to get back into the game, this is where you might start to feel, and I mentioned it in a previous episode about anxiety and performance, about potential injury anxiety. So you might start to feel anxious about coming back because you don't want the injury to happen again. You potentially are nervous about doing that skill at full tilt and in competition. Now, this is where your rehabilitation program comes in massively, but you've got to use your rehabilitation program as not only a physical checklist, but a mental checklist. So every time that you do something and you maybe push the boundaries and you get a little bit closer back to where you were, or if not better, then you tick it off and you say, okay, that was a success. I've banked an experience, and from this past successful experience, I know that this is a baseline level. And then the idea is that you go again and you may be pushing it again. Maybe you're doing the same session just to check and make sure that your body can deal with the stresses and strains that you're trying to put it under. And then each time that you're banking one of those experiences, that is building confidence. That is layering more and more confidence on your body. And my best advice I can give here is try, by the time you're at the very end of this spectrum and at this scale, and you're getting close to performing, you want to have felt that you've done something at close to full tilt, if not full tilt, that you feel comfortable with, and you're as close as you have ever been to where you were before. Hopefully, if you've addressed some of the stuff that I've said before, this is where you can come back even better. You can come back even stronger. So you may even find that, yes, you got injured, but you've now got yourself into a much better place, that you've learned so much about yourself, you've addressed different areas that you needed to address, and you could even be in a stronger place here. So don't even think that could not be a possibility, because it definitely could. I've even had that where I got injured, and then when I came back, I was in a much better place post-injury because I ticked off all these different things that I needed to work on and I got better at. A big part of this process is understanding yourself. Now, I talked about yoga, but ultimately injuries teach you a lot about your body, and you start to understand your body. Yoga is a great way in which I've learned more about my body. I've been able to know how the body moves better, how the body feels in certain situations. And all of that side of it has really helped develop an understanding for when I've potentially got injured again in the future. I've been able to stop myself getting injured earlier because of the understanding of my body. I've been able to understand that I'm not crossing a boundary from discomfort and then into pain, or I maybe am crossing that boundary and been able to pull back. I even recall a couple of moments where I stopped myself before I tore my hamstring because I knew I was about to tear it if I took another few more steps. It was frustrating for the team at the time, but I came off, I got it scanned, and I had caught it really early, and I had a few days off rather than a few weeks off. So that understanding, that process of understanding your body, that's what you're gaining from getting injured. So it's not all bad. The actual understanding of your body when you get injured is a real benefit. You start to learn about your body, what its limits were, what its needs are, what you are required or you've been missing out on. And you can use that for when you come back, because that understanding, you'll be able to address anything that may have some warning signs in the future, and you can start to recognize when they potentially start to happen again. So that understanding of your body, that leads into really knowing the difference between pain and discomfort. So in my sport, cricket, it is a sport where you play it with high levels of discomfort, sometimes pain. But you have to recognize whether that pain is discomfort purely because it hurts and it's sore, or whether it's genuinely damaging. Now, that only comes from experience, learning about your body, understanding your body. And as crazy as this seems, sometimes you've got to hurt yourself to look after yourself. That sounds crazy, that sometimes you have to hurt yourself in order to look after yourself. I have even said as far as that I hope, and I always hope, that a young person gets injured early, because the understanding that comes from it is far greater than what they may face later on, where if they get injured later on, they don't have that understanding. They haven't learned how to overcome those potential injuries. They haven't had that challenge mentally to overcome it. Then they may be missing something or lacking that resilience later on down the line. It sounds mad that I'm wishing upon someone to get injured, but I really hope you don't get a catastrophic injury, just something that sidelines you for a bit, that just kind of humanizes you or makes you feel less invincible, because the reality is that we do get injured in sport. Sport does get you injuries, and no matter whether you're at the highest level or the earliest level, one thing I can guarantee is that you will probably get injured in a sport, and you can't really run from it. But in this learning and in this understanding of your injuries, you must start to understand the difference between pain and discomfort, knowing what is it that can I go through, what is it that I can run through or take, or what is it that's going to stop me, and what is actually damaging me for longer term. And sadly, that does come from experience. That comes from pushing the boundaries, sometimes crossing that boundary, breaking, and then knowing where that boundary lies. Sometimes people are really good at knowing where that boundary is and being able to pull back just in time. But because sport is played at the limits, that's where we have to have an understanding where our limits are, where our boundaries are. It's no good trying to be this ultimately brave and heroic person who thinks that breaking through their boundaries is the best thing to do. That's not brave or courageous. That's just sometimes stupid and reckless. And by constantly breaking through those boundaries, you're only damaging yourself. And if you're in a team sport, then you're just damaging the team's chances as well. So learning that pain or discomfort and the difference between the two comes from this idea that you want to feel this pain. Don't run from pain. You want to feel this discomfort, learn from it, understand it. What is it? Is this pain? Is this just discomfort? Is this just a part of the sport that I'm playing and the industry that I'm going into, or just the hobby or the whatever level you're playing your sport at? Is this just a part of it? Or am I actually damaging myself? Now, again, you may need to see some specialists for that. That may require specialist advice, specialist assessment. But ultimately, those athletes that do understand I've got discomfort rather than pain, sometimes just pushing through it is what is required. And when you do that, every time you do that, you build this strength in your mind that, okay, I can deal with this level of pain. I can deal with this. I've learned to overcome it. And that breeds confidence, that level of resilience, that level of bravery and courage. You can almost look back at yourself at this different character and be, I'm proud of this person. I'm proud of what this person can take and go through to deal with this. But don't be reckless. Please don't be reckless. Don't think that this pain is stopping me from walking or it's really debilitating me. That could be really doing some long-term damage. And this is where we go back to, am I doing the right things? Am I looking after my body, whether it's recovery, the training, and all of that side of it? And this is where the learning happens. So like I said, sometimes, as crazy as this sounds, sometimes you have to hurt yourself to learn how to look after yourself. It sounds wild, but that is actually what you sometimes need. And that assessing and learning about yourself is where you can grow. So that is everything that I've got for you. Hopefully there is something there that you will be able to use, and it's maybe got your brain thinking, I know being injured is a really tough place. Like I said at the start, I empathize with everyone that is injured. And if you're feeling that frustration, that anger, that anxiety, then there are ways in which you can overcome that. And if you are interested, we are running the Mindset Masterclass on the Mindstrong Academy on controlling your anxiety, which this will all play a part in. And that is tomorrow, Wednesday, the 31st of May at 7:30 UK time. If you miss it and you don't get it, as a part of being a Mindstrong Academy member, you will get that recording and you can go back and listen as a part of your subscription. You can also ask questions. You can find me over on that academy. But if you also want to get in touch via things like Instagram or even email, find me on Instagram at Lewis Hatchett, or head over to the website lewishatchett.com. Just send in an email and I reply to those. If you do have anything or a setback or a challenge you're going through, especially if it's injury related, while I cannot offer medical or physician advice, I have been there, I've experienced these injuries, so I can maybe offer some help and support and maybe guidance through what you're going through there, or maybe even if you know someone, what they're going through. But as always, do subscribe to the podcast. It's because of you guys listening that I'm able to continue doing this, and I love continue doing it. So either reach out again over at the website, lewishatchett.com. Let me know if there's any topics you want to hear more about. We've got some guests coming up as always, but also I love hearing from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe, follow button on whatever platform you're listening on. It really does make a difference. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.